Good Company podcast again. Rick Karle, Matt Coulter, Lars Anderson, our special guest. Here she is, the one and only Lauren Sisler. How do you do that shimmy thing?
Do it right now. Sideline.
Is that what it is? Did you make that up? Or?
Oh, yeah. Sideline shimmy.
Where did that come from then?
Oh, well, there's this thing called nervous energy. And let's be real, you guys have all been, in front of a camera at some point in time in your life. And when you got 2 million people on the other side of that camera watching you, the nerves just take over.
Sure.
So I finally I realized as a former DJ, y'all know this, DJ Sisler, the music, I feel the music in the stadium and all the things. And the sideline shimmy became my therapy to get me grounded, and kind of redistribute some of the nervous energy. So instead of being like this with a microphone, at least I could, breathe a little better.
In quiet moments with coaches, do they ever do the sideline shimmy?
I mean, it could be a thing. We might need to work on that because I will tell you, I actually, when it comes to interviews, and you may have experienced this as well, I prefer an interview in a loud, rambunctious stadium because when you're like in the back of a room having to like interview like Kirby Smart or whatever, it's like the nerves. It's just like the quiet is almost disturbing, and I'm like, no, I'd rather have all the distractions than all the noise. But you might be onto something, Lars.
I want to see you get Kirby to do the Sisler sideline shimmy going in halftime of the Alabama game.
I mean, okay.
That'd be awesome.
There's your challenge.
That is a challenge. That's going to be interesting. I actually tried to get Dillingham to do it over at Arizona State, and he totally just laid out, wouldn't do it. He said, I'll save it for the locker room. And then the next week he did it on live TV, and I was like, my man, you let me down.
You are an ESPN reporter, sideline reporter. You've been local television, a sportscaster. You're doing everything. You're a speaker. You are an author. You are a mother.
Yes.
2-year-old.
2-year-old. Mason. Yep.
Mason.
My little dude.
Starting to talk. Roll Tide, War Eagle. Either of them out of them?
Come on now.
Come on, you got to be objective.
Hey, y'all know. Let's set the record straight. When I wear red, it is not crimson. It is scarlet.
Scarlet, yeah.
And I have to remind people, we were the first to ever play the game of college football. So we invented college football at Rutgers back in 1869. Wow. So those of you who want to claim all those national titles.
I have to say this, though. You're from Virginia.
Where are you heading with that?
You're from Virginia, though, right?
Yeah, from Virginia.
And I have to say, that's the longest I drove through there last month on my way to New England.
Would you go down 81?
81 from Tennessee. What's the Bristol?
Bristol, yeah.
That state never ends.
I know.
My gosh, you're going to Virginia.
Now the time to roll through Virginia is, to me, is in the fall.
Okay.
It's God's country, the mountains. I do miss that here in Alabama.
No,
not
that is true.
Having that.
So, how do you go from growing up in Virginia to going to Rutgers to becoming a sportscaster? That's kind of a loaded question, isn't it? But
you're an athlete, gymnast.
Yeah.
I know. Shocker, right? Because as I stand up from this table, I am 5'9", way too tall to be a gymnast. However, gymnastics became my sport at a young age, and I stuck with it. And so, obviously, in the recruiting process, it was basically, a lot of rejection that comes in recruiting. And so I went through kind of the list, and I had NC State and UNC on my list, West Virginia at one point, which now being in the world of sports, West Virginia is a little wild with the fandom. The fans get a little wild and crazy there. And then Air Force Academy and all those kind of went off the table. And then Rutgers was the last man standing. They came in late with a scholarship offer. And so that's, I rolled with it. And of course, being a Virginia gal, I always joke about it. Most people here in the South will be like, you're not from the South. And I'm like, well, I feel like, y'all, I say y'all a lot, and I have a little bit of the Southern dialect. Sure. I mean, do you guys argue with me that I'm not from the South?
How do you say mouse?
Mouse?
Yeah, in a little while, because a lot of the people in Virginia say moose and a boat.
That's not Virginia.
That's like Canada.
Yeah.
No.
You're like in Saskatchewan.
That's 3 against 1 here.
I mean, what
Yeah.
Virginia are you talking about?
No
But I
doubt
will
about
say
it.
that it is funny because the state is very divided in the sense that, like, Northern Virginia, Chesapeake and Norfolk is very different from where I'm from. I'm like 15 minutes from the West Virginia border. We are in the mountains of it all. Of course, my family and I always call it God's country. It's so beautiful there. But
I'll throw this in there. Have you ever heard Ward Burton talk? He's from Virginia. He's a NASCAR driver. He won
Yeah.
the Daytona
Yeah.
500.
That's
Now,
a
he
dis-
has a distinctive accent.
That is
and
a
that's all we're going to
distinctive
talk about that
accent.
because we want to talk more about
No,
you.
you're right about Wood.
I'm sorry I took that detour
it's
there.
different. It's different.
it's-
But yeah, I mean, so going to Rutgers was definitely a culture shock for me. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it was like, whoa, like New Jersey. Like it literally cost $13 round trip to get on a train and go into the city. 45-minute round trip train ticket, which was awesome. Like getting to experience that as a college kid was great, I mean, I am so grateful that Rutgers became like my landing spot because I think for so many reasons it became, it's why I wear Rutgers on my sleeve. And I think that in so many ways in the events that would happen in my life, Rutgers became that life raft for me, and saved me in so many ways. And so forever, grateful for that. And, if we could just get our football team right, and start working our way back up the ranks with old Greg Schiano there.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
good things will happen.
So when you got dropped off at Rutgers, what did Lauren want to do with her life?
Oh, well, little old me. I honestly wanted to be a sports doctor. So that was like the dream, to be a sports doctor. Because as an athlete, right, and I had a lot of setbacks in gymnastics, all the injuries over and over and over, I said, well, I could be like, a sports doctor, athletic trainer, help athletes get back out on the field to play. Like I felt like I could truly empathize with that. And so that was like the dream. Although looking back on that dream now as an adult, like a real adult, I'm like, ooh, I am like so squeamish, y'all. When it comes, I don't know about y'all, but when injuries and stuff happen on the field, immediately I'm just like, don't show the replay, don't
Right.
do it, because no thanks. But sports medicine was what I was aiming towards, and I think that was obviously a big dream and goal of mine. So I never ever imagined that I would be microphone in hand, like ESPN, college sports, like that just kind of came.
That's pretty cool. Tell us about your parents growing up. Brother, right? The two of you?
Yep.
Okay.
Me and my brother. He's 2.5 years older than me.
Okay. Normal family life, what they do for work, and then, they had some substance abuse issues. And you've told me earlier that it was still a normal family in many ways, getting you to school and, going through life.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, we were on the outside, in my perception, the white picket fence family. At least that's what I thought growing up, right? I mean, and I think that a lot of times in families, and I'm learning this now with a family of my own, it's really easy to put that perception out there of what the perfect family looks like. And, we're going to sports and doing our athletics. And my brother's a 3-sport athlete. And we're going to, NASCAR races. And we're going to the local speed track where my brother was on a pit crew. And my parents were very involved in everything that we did, very involved. And, I felt that unconditional love was the fabric of our family. And, my parents were very supportive. I will say this, I think throughout most of my childhood and into my, teenage years, we ended up moving out to the country where my parents built their dream home. And what I didn't know during that time as we transitioned, a very modest dream home, I'll put that out there, but it was still a dream home. And we moved out to the country, and my dad had acquired some land. And little did I know that at that same time, a lot of other things were brewing, and it was like the perfect storm of life to go off the rails for my parents. And yet for 3 or 4 years, we knew none of it as a family.
Lauren, you and I worked together on what eventually was going to become this book, but I did not write any of this book. We were just sort of in the very embryonic stages of trying to put something together. And, when we dug deep and got into the day that your life changed, I felt your emotion so strongly. Has that gone away a little bit? And then, but before you even get to that, can you just go back to that horrible, horrible, horrible stretch of time when your life changed?
Yeah, and Lars, I appreciate that because you and I got to sit down, and I like poured my heart out into this, this process, and obviously, you amongst a handful of other people had encouraged me, like, hey, you need to write a book. Like, you've got this amazing story, and I finally was finding the courage to share that story. Mm-hmm. And it took me many years to get to that point, and I know we'll unpack that in a minute. But I'm at Rutgers, living my dream, which was gymnastics scholarship, pre-med, doing all the things, living the college life, having the time of my life. And I remembered my second semester picking up the phone, calling my parents, had a conversation with them like I always did. Not a day went by that we didn't talk because they were like my best friends. I'm 8 hours from home, but our communication was so strong, and talked to my mom and then talked to my dad for a bit and then hung up the phone, and everything seemed normal. Like everything seemed normal. Set my alarm clock, went to sleep, and next thing you know, I wake up to my phone ringing, and my dad let me know that my mom died. And it was just a complete shock because I'm like, okay, it's middle of the night. We just talked on the phone. My mom's 45 years old. Like, what happened? And my dad literally said to me, I can't explain it now. Get on the next plane you can, and I'll be at the airport to pick you up. And unfortunately, I get down, I get, wheels on the ground. I'm in Roanoke. I'm in my hometown. He's supposed to be there to pick me up. And instead, it's my Uncle Mike and my cousin that show up to tell me that my dad too passed away. So in a matter of 5 hours, my mom passes away, then my dad. And I just remember sitting in the backseat of that car thinking, like, what is my world now going to become without the two people that literally, I'm not ashamed to say it, would come into my room every single night. They would tuck me in. We would say our prayers, and it was just always like just that love and affirmation that I constantly got from them. And then here we are, like, wow, like this over in an instant.
The year was
2003. So March 24th of 2003, that happens, and then it was just now trying to pick up the pieces. The very next day, I'm in the funeral home, like, I literally had $50 in my bank account. And now I'm like, I got to bury both of my parents. And then, my auntie Linda, my mom's sister, says, all right, time to go back to school. I literally pack up my things 2 weeks after my parents die, go back to Rutgers. And I mean, it's just, I'm a disaster. I'm a hot mess. I can't function. My grades are slipping. And you know what that means? Like, if you don't keep the grades up, you're losing your scholarship. And then it's like, what am I going to do? And it was just this awful, I just felt like I was just in this wave and just being sucked under constantly, and then coming up for a little bit of air and then just being sucked back under. And that went on really for months and well into a year or two, even while I was at Rutgers. And then the journey to even finding myself in this process and unloading this shame that I felt for so many years because of how my parents died on March 24th. It was a lot to unpack.
So many low points, but what was the lowest of the low?
Ooh, I've not been asked that before. The lowest of the low. That's really good. I mean, of course, I think the low point, obviously, number one, is the moment that I'm told that my dad's not here either. Okay, because you expect to have at least one parent there to like walk you through this. I think the lowest of the low would certainly have to be that summer, first summer back home, standing in the living room of our house in Giles County, the house that everything I ever knew was in, the house that we built. So the second half of my life where I spent many, many, many hours and days and years, everything within a matter of hours was boxed up, taped shut, and put in the back of a moving truck to be auctioned off to the estate. Everything. There was no will, cars were repossessed, house went into foreclosure. Everything was auctioned off to complete strangers because we literally had nothing left.
Well, how did they pass?
So my parents were going to pain management doctor in Roanoke, Virginia. My mom had degenerative disc disease. Dad had chronic back pain, PTSD from service in the military. I was actually born in Guantanamo Bay when he was serving there in the Navy. And They were both being prescribed Oxycontin. Eventually, that didn't work for my mom anymore. She was then prescribed fentanyl pain patches. And both of my parents ultimately became addicted to the medication and started abusing it. So they were essentially at this point going off script and taking more than they were supposed to, and then eventually altering the way it was taken. So the fentanyl pain patches, you essentially, and my dad read this online, and this is why when you look at the journey and where they were and how far they came into this addiction and how quickly it happened. I mean, it really wasn't a matter of 2 to 3 years that they were actually like taking this medication like full time. And my dad read online that you could put the fentanyl patch in the freezer, and he did it because he needed the fix. He needed the high. He needed to fix the pain he was in. He needed to fix the dope sick he was feeling. And he overdosed, and that was at Thanksgiving when I was at Rutgers. I come home for Thanksgiving. We wake up that morning to my mom yelling, "Someone call 911." My dad overdosed, and that very same day, he literally said it did exactly what it was supposed to. And little did I know, because I went back to Rutgers being told, bad reaction to medication. So in my 18-year-old brain, that was, total freak accident. Everything's okay. But later learned that everything was not okay, because the events that would follow, and even specifically that evening, we go home, we have Thanksgiving. My dad goes to a psychiatric unit to be evaluated because of what happened, the nature of what happened. And he literally looked my mom in the eyes and said, maybe you'd be better off without me.
Lauren, did it make you angry?
Let me tell
Want
you.
to go there? That's okay.
No. I mean, I think you hit it right there, because grief is the first thing that comes to mind. Loss, grief. But then all of a sudden you segue into anger. The why me? How did this happen to me? How did this happen to my family? Why us? And I think everybody's been there. When you walk through challenging times in life, everyone will experience loss. And that might not even be the loss of life. It could be the loss of what could have been, a job, a marriage, there's so many things that people, lose, even expectations. People lose expectations. And I think that, we in our lives have this thing scripted out in our minds of like how it's going to go. And all of a sudden things just get thrown right off script. And I think the anger part kicked in pretty quick, because I'm like, why did this happen? And how come I had no idea? My mom and dad, I think, did everything they could to shield my brother and I from what was happening in our home, right in front of us, yet behind closed doors. So then the anger kicks in, I think, a lot, because, here I am living my life, living out my dream. This is all happening, and like they don't say a word. They don't talk about it with anybody. There's no clues. Looking back now, hindsight's 20/20, okay? So, there are a few things that I look at and I'm like, okay, maybe that could have been a sign, But, I mean, they did everything they could to like mask what was going on. And I think it comes with shame, the shame that was bearing down on them.
Were you angry with your parents at some stage?
At one point, yes. I felt an anger. While I wouldn't say in the moment I thought it was like directly at them, but I think reflecting on it now, it was definitely like, well, yeah, why didn't they say anything? Why didn't they speak up? And even maybe a little bit anger towards myself. Why didn't I ask more questions? Especially now, look, I'm a professional journalist that asks questions all the time. And yet I couldn't go there back then. And I think a lot of it was because, number one, we our family is who we love. So we do everything to protect them. And in a way, I think I was protecting myself from the potential hurt that would come if I knew the truth about what was happening.
Did it make you a better reporter?
I mean, it has forced me to drill down on things that I never once did. My husband jokes with me. He's like, man, you ask way too many questions. And I'm like, well, I do it for a living. I mean, what do you expect? But I do think that where it made me better is I realized the depths of what we do as journalists and what we do in this opportunity. You guys have developed and produced this amazing podcast, right? It's all based about story and unpacking people's stories, because guess what those stories do? impact, ripple effect. So this is not just, this is not just today. This is an impact that can far exceed anything that we ever imagined, generational impact even. When you start to realize that, people have stories. Every single person has a story. And when you recognize the impact of that and the ripple effect that it can have when you have the courage to share the story. And I think that's where I've come into this light of realizing that, the championships are cool. Lars, you've been on a million sidelines. You all have. You guys have been on the sidelines and watched the confetti fall from the field. Like, that's amazing. But I've realized that it's so much more than that championship, right? It's the depths of it are the stories and the individuals that have impacted those players and those coaches throughout their entire lives. And so that is where things have shifted for me. And I've realized that's where I've become a better reporter. I'll get on the phone with some of these players. I do these calls with them leading into a game. And sometimes I have to put myself on mute because I think I'm so invested. Mm-hmm. Some of the stories that you get on there and share, I'm just like, I'm an ugly crier, y'all. I'll tell you, I'm an ugly crier. Put it out there. But sometimes I have to put myself on mute because as they're sharing their story, I'm in it. I'm in the story and feeling the weight of their pain and what they've walked through, but also watching the strength that they've shown in that journey. And so, sometimes I try not to apologize for my tears. I've gotten better about that. But I have to put myself on mute so they're not sitting here like, dang, like this girl's over here like making me cry.
Your parents died in 2003. Mm-hmm. How many years did it take before you let go of some of that anger and turned toward the light, as you mentioned, and perhaps thought of writing a book? And that's a long process for you, I would think.
Whew, long process indeed. The encouragement, obviously, to write a book came probably earlier in the process. And, I think for me, it was when I actually started to step out into the light and share their story, because for so long I held on to that shame. Y'all, for 7 years, my best friend didn't know how my parents died. For 7 years.
Wow, you really held it in.
Oh, held it in. So it was the sugar-coated story. I literally went back to Rutgers. Of course, people want to know. And I can only imagine the conversations that were happening when I was not in the room. Right? I go back to Rutgers and I literally crafted the story. My mom died of respiratory failure. My dad died of a heart attack. Because, to the average person, the common person, that just sounds like, oh, wow. Like,
so you were trying to convince yourself of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because in theory, my mom did die of respiratory failure. Because that's what happens when you overdose, right? You go into cardiac arrest, you go into respiratory failure, and then you go into cardiac arrest. Same with my dad. Mm-hmm. But heart attack, right, sounds a lot better than respiratory failure, because if my parents died from the same thing, then it's justifying this whole, and then the big question then becomes, well, if it happened to your mom, how did it happen to your dad? And was suicide involved? And I will tell you, I've gotten that question a lot. And writing this book took me into a place that I just never even fathomed would happen, because I'll never know what happened in that house that night when all this went down. I'll never truly know the events because, oh, by the way, the toxicology reports and the basically the police report, 3 paragraphs. Like, we're operating on 3 paragraphs. When my dad calls 911 to get someone there to help my mom, there are just 3 short paragraphs outlining what the heck happened. So it wasn't until 19 years later, I go to my high school, and this is where, Lars, we talk about just unpacking the most unbelievable, not a coincidence thing. I go into my high school, I speak at my high school. At this point, I have the courage to share my parents' story. I get up there, share their story. There is a young man that is an 8th grader that goes home to dad, says, Dad, this ESPN reporter came to speak at our school, and he started sharing the story with his dad, and his dad stopped him and said, son, I was the one that responded to the call that night. Her parents died. Mm. And so now all of a sudden I now have a person that was there that witnessed it. And I think that's where a lot of the unpacking began for me, because now all the questions that I had, I'll never have all the answers. But the very question was, okay, this happened to my mom and then this happened to my dad. Like, what happened in between and what ultimately led down this path? And I remember the deputy, Captain Eric Twaits, whose son Brady is the one that told him about me being at the school. I asked him the question when I was interviewing him for the book. And I said, you know, I always in my heart, like, wondered, and the anger, this is where the anger percolates, you know, mom passes away, dad's devastated. Was his death intentional? And not that you can change what happened, but I think in my mind, I always wondered, like, was it intentional? And he said, Lauren, when I walked in your house back then, I was young. I thought, yeah, you know, this seems like suicide. And, you know, both deaths were ruled accidental. But he said to me, he said, Lauren, he spent about 8 years, I think, on the drug task force. He was young back then. Every person that was on the scene that day thought it was intentional or it was suicide. But he said, knowing what I know now, knowing what your parents were walking through, knowing what drug addiction does to people, and seeing the phone in your dad's hands, to me, was the very thing that I realized now. Your dad was doing everything he could to get you and your brother home to safety, to be able to love on you and nurture you and help you walk through this terrible tragedy. This, to me, is not indicative of a man that would take his life. And that, to me, was just like, whoa. And that's not something we really unpack in the book necessarily. And so it's something that has just really been kind of resonating with me. And I haven't really talked a lot about it publicly because it's just something I've been kind of holding on to for a while.
First off, let me tell you, you're not an ugly crier. Okay. Okay. Like, I think I just shed some tears with you in our old studio with Jay Barker.
A time or two. Yeah.
Yeah. And in no way are you ugly crier. But when did you go from why me to what can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do to help?
That's so good. You know, I talk about that journey and the 7 years that passed that my best friend didn't even know. And really, I have to say, you know, my Auntie Linda, my mom's sister, I mean, I'll be honest, like, for years, she tried to help me with the truth. And I'm telling you, when I say fisticuffs, like, I was just ready to just, go down, like fighting, because to me, I felt like she was attacking my parents, right? Their legacy, their image, their character, because that's what addiction tells us, right? In society, addiction tells us, like, oh, you're one of those. And then all of a sudden, it's like over time, she gently started to help me to see that my parents aren't defined by how they died, but by how they lived their lives. And I think that ultimately was the key that sort of unlocked that prison that I was living in with the shame. And it would still be a few more years before I would sit at a microphone and actually share that story and then even go deeper with the book, for sure. But that journey, it was 10 years before I sat at the Foundry out in Bessemer, which is a recovery facility, you know, a faith-based men and women's recovery, you know, facility out there.
Which you were a volunteer.
Which I was a volunteer. Spent a lot of time with them. And so at this point, now I'm ready to unpack my story. I sat on that couch and opened those toxicology reports for the very first time, 10 years after my parents died. And y'all, I was terrified to see what was on the other side of that manila envelope. Terrified. So
took a little courage to read that.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, it's like, this is the truth. Like, what's in here? Like, you can't falsify these reports. And I think seeing that on paper was the very thing that was like, oh. But in a lot of ways, I think that really set the wheels in motion to transition from the why me to the now, what can I do about it? So now it's not just about preserving a legacy, it's more about building one for not only me, but my family, my son, my husband, and for those around us that are struggling, because struggle is real and struggle carries so much shame. And I've just seen the wheels just turning as I've spoken to a lot of people to be like, oh, like, if I can find more courage to share my story and step into my story, then maybe I can free myself from the shame that I'm constantly being held down by.
It's interesting. Like, I don't view you, well, first off, you're a friend, good friend, but I don't view you as a ESPN reporter. I view you as someone who is out there spreading a message that is much larger than yourself. And that is something I know that you have been working on and building for, 5, 6, 7 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, is that how you view yourself?
It's definitely shifted. And I think all of us know in our careers, we're all probably in a different place than we certainly were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? It changes, it evolves over time. ESPN used to be the end all be all. I was always chasing that next thing. Oh, I finally get the call. I get to go do my first Auburn game. And then I get SEC Nation. And then I'm like, oh, what's next? What's next? It's always what's next. And then I realized like ESPN has been a phenomenal platform and they've been so supportive in this journey. I mean, I'm so grateful because you don't see a lot of people that are out there necessarily advocating for addiction, prevention, mental health. It has become more talked about, I believe, truly. But, they've been supportive in that. But I think ultimately, while at one point I saw myself as the sports reporter, first when I was here locally at CBS 42, then AL.com, and then kind of moving up the ranks to ESPN, that was kind of first and foremost, top priority. And that has certainly shifted now that I know that I'm thrilled to be on the sidelines every football season, but I know there's a lot of work out there to be done, and I'm grateful to have my footprint reach a lot further than just the sideline reporter for ESPN.
We've I think maybe Lars hasn't done sideline somewhere, and crazy stuff happens. You ever get hit by a football? Has a cheerleader ever land on top of you or anything like that?
I mean, it happens all the time. You'd be shocked. You have to, your head has to be on a swivel. I literally always tell the security folks, like whenever I'm out there, I'm like, hey, just so you know, I try to pay attention, but sometimes my hand, my face is buried in my notes. I'm looking at something. So I always encourage them. I said, I will not take offense to it if you grab my shoulder
shove you out of the way.
Push me out of the way.
Hey, Laura Rutledge got slammed.
And she took it like a champ.
And she stood right up.
I've never been trucked like that before.
Boy, she
but
got it good.
I'll be honest with you. I think about it. I know this is probably like in my mind like PTSD from all my injuries in gymnastics. One injury I never had was a torn ACL, which is a hugely common injury in gymnastics. And I'm like, I'll be danged if I'm going to get trucked out here and lose an ACL because somebody whacks me on the sideline. So I try to be agile, and stay out of the way when I can. But, we have to turn our backs to the field a lot of times when we're about to get on there and do our reports. And it's funny because my producer will get in my ear and said, hey, why don't you hold on, wait for this play to unfold before you turn around and look at the camera. So I have to get that reminder sometimes of like, don't get crazy here,
It is stunning how fast they can be on top of you. Yeah. It's like, they're 30 yards away, and maybe it's getting closer.
And they are not slowing down for anybody on the sideline. No, because remember they got the pads on.
There's Lauren. We better
slow down. Let me juke a little
Hey, back to the book though. Where did Shatterproof come from? The name, and how cathartic was it to you when you dove into writing this? Did it help you? Was it therapy for you?
Oh yeah, immense therapy. I'll just tell you. that process because. First of all, the king daddy of writing books over here, the process. It's grueling. I know you're working on a lot of short-term and long-term projects. So it provided a lot of therapy, I think, uncovering a lot of questions that I had. And even though those questions don't change the outcome, I think that it gives me a lot better visual and understanding of maybe how we ended up where we ended up. And then also being able to use that to help other people walk through maybe what they're walking through. So that's number one. Shatterproof actually came because I don't know about you, Lars, but coming up with the title of a book can be like the hardest.
I'm horrible at titles.
Okay, so you probably have a team of people that literally get in a war room and go through this because it is hard. Really? But somebody that I was connected with that really helped with different elements of the book, Gary Schneeberger. He's in the PR world. He's written some books himself, but we just kind of sat down and started riffing on some different stuff. And he basically said literally someone took a baseball bat to your life and shattered it into a million pieces. But you have proven through your resilience, through your ability to just stand up against all the things that were weighing against you, and to be able to pick up your life and create something as beautiful as it's become, even through all the pain and the hardship. And so that's how we landed on Shatterproof. And it's just seeing
I gotta tell you, it's a brilliant title.
Yeah,
it is a great brilliant. It is brilliant.
Wow, I appreciate coming from like the bestseller over there. New York Times bestseller. Heck
it's
yeah,
really good.
I get that seal of approval.
It's a great title.
You ended up here in Birmingham in 14, 15?
So 2011, I actually came to CBS 42.
Okay, and you worked there for a while. But you could have gone, I guess, back to Newport, Virginia. I guess you could have gone to Bristol, Charlotte, maybe even New York City. But you worked here.
Yeah.
You came back.
Oh, I stayed
you must
here.
Love it.
I stayed here.
Yeah. Why Birmingham? Did you enjoy your time at 42?
I did. Yeah.
And
it was a great opportunity to really embarrass myself a lot. Worked with Jim Dunaway. He was a sports director over there at the time, and let me tell you, I mean, we just it was wild and crazy. But I learned a lot. I've come a long way. If you look some of my first tapes, like I couldn't get 2 words out, and I would just be like frozen.
You did fine.
I mean, it was crazy, but. Alabama has been a place, and again, much like Rutgers, I go Virginia to Rutgers, never in a million years, and then I end up in Alabama. Never did I think my career was going to end up here. Number one, this is like a sports reporter's like playground. Are you kidding me? Like, what a great place to land. And I actually joke with Nick Saban. I saw him, for the Nick Saban Legacy Award, and it's a joke, but it's kind of real talk here because, like, his success ultimately sort of became the foundation of ESPN deciding to launch the SEC network. And then to be here in Alabama when all that was manifesting was huge. And so I think that in a lot of ways, like being at the right place at the right time does resonate there. Yes, it requires a lot of hard work, but being here in Alabama, I'm the Rutgers girl. Like, I don't have a dog in the fight, I mean, literally.
That makes 3 of us at this table.
Well, no, I mean,
Rick,
she's
myself,
right.
and you. We're all outsiders.
She's right about Saban's success. I mean, I covered all 17 years of it at Fox 6, and his success brought more necessity to have sports people out covering all these championships and Auburn's run. And I'm like you. I'm from Syracuse, New York. I thought I'd be here 3 years. I took Eli Gold's place at Channel 6 years ago. He got that Bama gig. In fact, I'm at Sports Center by 1992,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, your wife gets her law degree and has a kid, and you buy a house, and Birmingham is a sports playground, and folks are nice, and so.
Oh, I mean, you couldn't be more right there. And I think it's just the people, and I grew up in a southern town, rural Virginia. And then you go to Rutgers, and I'm not saying the people aren't nice there. Don't get me wrong.
What are you
I gotta
talking
give some
about,
love to my Jersey folk.
Yeah.
But you come here to Alabama, and it's like, whoa, and so it's crazy because I convinced my husband, he's from Christiansburg, Virginia. I convinced him to move down here. He moves down here, totally riding my coattails, obviously at the very beginning. We're gonna call it what it is.
How did you guys meet?
I'm gonna tell you this is a really funny story. This has never been told publicly, so you're gonna laugh at this. Okay, so we met at Corned Beef and Company. That part's public. It's actually a quick little blurb in the book. So we met at Corned Beef and Company where I used to DJ, okay? DJ Sisler. And so we get together, we end up, hitting it off, whatever. And it takes a couple years before we really decide, okay, you're going to move down here. So we did the long distance thing for a little while. He moves here. Very first week of moving down here, mind you, he's living out of a suitcase, like in my closet, right? Mm-hmm. He moves down here, like no job, quits his job, was working for Norfolk Southern in Virginia. So talk about a leap of faith. Like, I'm just going to quit my job and move down to Alabama where my girlfriend's doing all this cool sports stuff. This is in the midst of the college football playoff. So I believe this actually was like the first year of the playoff, if I'm not mistaken, or second year. So we go to New Orleans. Alabama's playing in New Orleans. And literally ESPN puts us up in the JW. It's like all the things. He ends up getting a ticket to the game, hanging out, whatever. The very next week, he's in Atlanta. Mind you, no job, riding his girlfriend's coattails at the time. We're hanging out with Charles Barkley, just, random, right? Yeah. Just hanging out with Charles. And, my husband was just planning on watching the game at the hotel. whatever. And Charles goes, hey, do you got a ticket, man? And he's like, nah. And he's like, well, I've got one for you. Whips open his jacket, pulls this ticket out for his suite in the Mercedes-Benz
Stadium. Wow.
Stadium.
That's pretty cool.
And so my husband's literally watching the national championship, the Tua game, up in a suite
2018,
with Charles Barkley standing up there, like everybody just hanging out like they're longtime friends and bros. So that is literally how he spent the very first 2 weeks of his life in Alabama.
Pretty
Boy, how
good
much does he love
introduction
you?
to Alabama.
I mean, so I pretty much, at that point, then
that.
he's like, okay. So that could have been the very reason where he decided, okay, I'm going to propose to this girl. She's my girl. But we love it here. We've just enjoyed doing things. He started a roofing company. And so that's been cool. So Hire Roof Solutions. No, I don't know if you're allowed to give plugs here, but whatever.
You just did.
I just did.
did.
But it's cool though because he's found his footing here. And as you mentioned, Lars, I think it's funny. We talked offline before we jumped on here. Like, how does that work when you have a 2-year-old at home? My poor husband, single dad, Thursday through Sunday. I don't know how he does it. He goes and plays golf when he can periodically to take a break, but for the most part, he's playing single dad for 20 straight weeks during college football season. And so I got to give him a lot of credit for being able to put up with me and, do this career. Because as y'all know, with family, this is not for the faint at heart. The long hours, the long days,
tough.
the grind, the hours, not as glamorous as people think it is, right?
Sitting in a satellite truck in Pasadena at 3 a.m. and the producer says you're on in 90 minutes and you've got 16 hits in the next.
I mean, right?
And you're trying to pick sound bites.
Picking sound bites. Everyone
I know,
else
first
is
world
either
problems.
asleep or just out tailgating doing the thing.
Right.
And
You're
we're
right,
roll-
though. The traveling, being away from your family is as big a negative as involved in our business as anything.
I mean that there's no price tag you can put on that.
And you can't get it back.
I say that often. I remind people time is non-refundable.
If there's a message that you want people to know after you've written this book, I mean, it's like you said, resiliency, hope, prayer, faith. I mean, there's a zillion things. Is there something that you hope the world digests out of this book?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me has, my mantra has become fall in love with your story. And I think that to me has been kind of the essence of all the things you just said, right? Mm-hmm. There's hope tied into that. There's the faith piece of it. There's, walking through adversity and realizing that in life, we are all going to face adversity. And with adversity, a lot of times comes shame. And we all want to put that in a dark place, in a corner. Don't talk about it. Don't bring it into the light. And I think that is what I hope, is that I could be that little spark for someone to say, you know what, my story matters. What I do matters. What I've walked through has been hard, but don't let that be the defining moment in my life. Use it to refine me and help me to become, a better person, a better advocate, a better servant, a better, whatever it is that you hope to become, and to using those hardships as something that helps to shape you and help you to walk through some of life's challenges without that weight of shame. Because guess what? Shame tells us to rewrite our stories. I want people to realize that their hardest chapter doesn't have to be their last. And when we can see our self-worth and our value, and it's not just tied to the things that are hard and the things that may have gone wrong in our lives, recognizing those can be the very thing that can strengthen us and give not only ourselves permission to share our stories, but give other people to do the same.
I love that. Don't let the troubles define you. Let it refine you.
Yeah.
You're
I
certainly
love that.
perfect example of that.
Yeah.
You've been awesome.
Yeah, you've been awesome.
We end this on a high note.
Okay.
All right, Lauren.
Let's do it.
You're such a good storyteller. What is your best story from being on the road, on the sideline, wherever, that you tell your friends at the dinner table when they say, what's it like to work at ESPN and be a sideline reporter?
Oh, man, like the best story. There's several stories that I obviously tie back to the importance of stories. One story that I love to tell, and this actually is in the book, but it really speaks to gratitude. And so this is Texas A&M, because people say, well, what's your favorite stadium? And I'm always like, well, I mean, Texas A&M is pretty cool. You can walk in there on a Friday afternoon and the 12th man ghost is like up there staring you in the face. And it's like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So this is Texas A&M playing Arkansas, and Jimbo Fisher and Sam Pittman are the two coaches. And this is like COVID time, so everybody's still having to do those kind of crazy, like separated, interviews. Well, Jimbo Fisher comes running off the field, and he's a little anxious, like, come on, and in TV, like, you wait till your producer says go.
Right.
Well, he's sitting here doing this, and I get nervous. And so I basically ask him the question. I totally flub it up, and I'm like, and I get so bent out of shape when I flub things up. So then, second half, I go over to Sam Pittman and I basically take the notes that you get, after halftime. And that dude just walks out of the locker room, hands on his hips, just leans back and takes his sweet old time answering my questions. Sweetest man. And so as we're wrapping up, I say, thanks, coach. And I go running off to my audio, table. And all of a sudden I hear someone yell, Lauren. And I turn and look, and there's Sam Pittman. And he starts motioning for me. He starts running towards me, trotting towards me. So I take off running towards him. I look at the clock, y'all, 1 minute and 49 seconds. I can still see it in the stadium. And I'm thinking, this dude has got to go coach a game. You mean to tell me what in the world does Sam Pittman want? He walks over to me and says, Lauren, you're really awesome at what you do. And I mean that.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So he took the time to share that piece of information with me, and I ended up DMing him on Twitter a few weeks later and thanked him for that. And he said,
Wait, Sam Pittman's on Twitter?
Yeah, I know. Sam Pittman is on Twitter.
Sam Pittman is now my favorite all-time
I mean,
coach.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
and I'm
we're big
thinking,
too.
and I know that he's been on the hot seat like every other coach in America at some time. But for him to take the time, and then when I said that to him, he literally, when I sent him a direct message on Twitter, I said, I slid on into his DMs. I was like, hey, it really meant something to me, because like no coaches do that, right? Like they don't. He's got a game to coach. They're down by 2 scores, and the fact that he took the time, that it was in the front of his mind to share that piece of information. He said, Lauren, it doesn't take but a few moments to let someone know how much you appreciate them. That's when I realized the ripple effect that can happen, that we in life are so quick to just jump to the next thing. But if we would just take a moment and do what Coach Saban says, amongst other coaches, be where our feet are and recognize that, like, be in this moment, right? And take advantage of this moment. Time is non-refundable. And I think that's where gratitude really starts to shine, and where we can feel that gratitude. And for him to take that moment with 1 minute and 49 seconds on the clock, I'll never forget it. And I joke with him now. I'm like, well, what a great recruiting tool, because now I tell that story at like all the quarterback clubs. They're like,
Sam Pittman.
Sam Pittman. I love that guy now.
That's awesome. Book available where books are sold, I guess, right? Everywhere online, and
Google it.
Google it, yeah.
Google it.
How many pages did it end up being?
Oh gosh,
A lot.
33 chapters I know, but like 200 and something, and also the audio version. So some
that's
people
right. That you narrated.
that I
Your
narrated,
voice. I thought
yeah.
that was cool.
And let me tell you, that was one of the hardest things I did,
Oh, I
because
bet.
sitting down and writing it and working on it with my co-writer and my editors was one thing.
235, I don't know.
And then all of a sudden to like actually verbalize a lot of the scenes, because it goes deep.
It goes deep.
I always joke that, if I had a nickel for every time somebody came up to me and said, you need to write my story, you are the only person I have ever said, you need to write a book. And so I'm so
And hey, let me tell you where I was.
I'm so happy for you, Lauren.
I appreciate that. Lars, I was actually at Tulane, because it was during COVID times. Once again, I was in the hotel in New Orleans when you and I had that conversation on the phone. And that spark really did push me, because it was you and I sitting down, because, you were working with an agent and said, there's potential here.
Yep.
Because I didn't believe in my potential. I'm a nobody. Like, nobody wants to hear my story and message. Who the heck cares? But you gave me that push to say, you know what? You've got a story and you need to tell it. So thank you.
He's bucking for royalties.
For doing that.
Lauren Sisler, author, reporter, anchor, mother, wife. Anything else? Golfer? Gymnast.
Gymnast. I play a
Shatterproof.
little golf. little tennis, you know.
Little tennis. Do pickleball yet?
I love some pickleball.
Love pickleball.
But I'm more of a
Pickleball.
tennis. I'm more of tennis, and
Yeah,
that's
get
hard.
that
It is hard to
Two-handed
transition.
backhands. Yeah, it is. That ball doesn't bounce up to you like the tennis ball does. You got to go get it.
Yeah.
Lauren Sisler, thank you.
Thank you,
Y'all,
Lauren.
thank you. I love this. Thanks for the conversation, my friends.
Take care.
Thank you.